bragging that AI can do this job and this job and this job. And then Bill Whitaker said the right question, of course, you know, what are these people going to do?
Today's going to be an interesting video because Bill Maher was just on and he was going after AI. And so I couldn't resist putting together my own little video, which is a clip of his show, which I'm then going to react to for this video. Without further ado, let's just watch it and then we'll go through and piece it apart. So it should be kind of fun.
I think the thing that Zuckerberg and the people in his camp are going to have to answer for more. He was talking this week about how he said soon AI can do the job of most mid-level coders. You know, kind of bragging about this.
Right, yeah.
My question is, and then what job do most mid-level coders do? I also saw the guy from NVIDIA. That's the company that makes all the chips that go in to make AI work.
It's made the most money in the last 5, 10 years.
Right. He basically the same thing, bragging that AI can do this job and this job and this job. And then Bill Whitaker said the right question, of course, you know, what are these people going to do? And a total bullshit answer. Well, I think this is really going to create more jobs. No, it's not.
Yeah.
You're just doing it because you want to do it. I don't think these guys are even in it for the money. They have more money they could ever use.
I just paused it because I totally forgot that I had beeped out the swearing. I almost did a spit take with my coffee, but I edited it out so my mom wouldn't say anything.
It's fun. It's just fun to push the boundaries in the field that you're good at. I get it.
Yeah.
But they don't give a what the repercussions of AI taking everybody's job.
It's like that. I know. Hey, you say that. It's almost like they're making that old migrant argument. Hey, AI is just taking the jobs college graduates don't want to do. You know?
Right.
You know, it's like, what are you talking about? This is what people, you know, people want to be engineers. You know, these are fields that people have abilities in. And, you know, a lot of genius about how to do things comes from, you know, the way that people think differently and all that stuff. And AI takes over that. That's a whole swath of opportunities for people to be creative about the future.
Do you think they want to? Do you think they're trying to get?
Thank you.
That's when they were going to go. I'm going to pause it. That's when they were going to go talk about TikTok. So it's interesting. A couple things, you know, a couple different topics they're talking about. So one of the first things is just about how they don't really consider, and by they I mean Zuckerberg and the Elon Musk, who's got Grok out now, and I'm going to do a video on that and the app. And then OpenAI, so particularly Sam Altman and Jensen Huang from NVIDIA. And NVIDIA, I did a previous video on that. And NVIDIA is the ones that are kind of building the chips, the GPUs that are running AI. So that's what Bill Maher was talking about. I've got a lot to say about this video. I think it's easier if I just go back and start over. The video looped. And so I'm going to start over and we'll just talk about each piece.
Zuckerberg and the people in his camp are going to have to answer for more. He was talking this week about how he said soon AI can do the job of most mid-level coders. You know, kind of.
This is interesting because it talks about bragging rights for the AI company saying, oh, you don't need coders. And in my previous video, I was talking a bit about how some coding may be replaced. And one of you left a comment down in my YouTube section. I'm sorry, I re-edited that video so it got deleted, but it was a really good comment just about how in the future there will still be a need for human coders. And I was coding over the last few days and was, you know, up all night, and I was coding with GPT. So I tried GPT-04 and the O1 model, and I was going back and forth, and I was doing some Python code, some JSON, and the JSON was malformed. The Python code and the other shell scripts and other things were failing because of this, and ChatGPT kept sending me in a loop. So it was like, oh, fix this and fix that, and I kept cutting and pasting the error messages and even set debugging and other things, you know, typical things you do in your coding. And I'm not a Python pro by any means, but it's interesting because it was not fixing the problem. and it was sending me down this blind lane, and then it kept catching me in the lane, and I kept going in circles, and I got frustrated. So finally, I was like, ChatGPT, this is the last time, And I told it specifically, I was like, okay, the JSON is broken, whatever. And I ended up copying the JSON over to a website where you could test it out and fixing it myself and doing this and that. And when I was very, very specific with the AI, then it could fix it. But it wasn't good. It wasn't doing really any problem solving or reasoning. And O1 did a little better. I mean, that's their newer logic model, but it still wasn't really as good as I had thought it would be, because I kind of was under the assumption that a lot of my errors and just copying and pasting the error message I got, that ChatGPT would be able to sort of fix it itself, and that was not the case. So I do think that because of, I'm a case in point, and I wish I had a better programmer with me, somebody to say, oh, this is how you resolve this problem, and to think logically through it. But not having that was a difficult situation for me. And I did ended up solving the problem, but it took me more time than it probably should have. I'm afraid to admit. It's not my day job. I'm an AI solutions engineer, and I understand how these different pieces work, but just, again, was a proven point that you really do need somebody who knows what they're doing. And even if you're using AI, it's a tool, and you can use an assistant in more of a symbiotic relationship, but you do still need somebody who knows what they're doing. So let me keep playing this and do the next section.
Right. Yeah. My question is, and then what job do most mid-level coders do? I also saw the guy from
coders. The idea will be that you'll become a better and better coder. So somebody comes out of school, and also I have to point out that coding isn't everything or the only thing. Like, you really need to understand the nuts and bolts of how all these pieces fit together. So you're not going to come in and pull up a ChatGPT that's going to fully explain networking or routing to you, for example. And for me, somebody who's been around a few years, having worked in a data center, having worked with physical hardware, pulling cables, doing things like this in the back end, the cloud isn't some mysterious thing. Like, it's all actual physical hardware on the back end. And you still have to have a mental understanding of how those things work, and particularly if you're troubleshooting. So if there's a communication issue between certain elements in your data structure architecture, that can really throw you off if you don't understand how those things work. So although I just want to point that out, although coding has its place, it's not the only thing. You also have to understand all the infrastructure around it and the whole stack that supports it.
From NVIDIA, that's the company that makes all the chips that go in to make AI work.
It's made the most money in the last 5-10
right.
years.
I have to point out, it's interesting when you start talking about AI, things like that money comes up instantly, and the NVIDIA stock comes up instantly. Wall Street's been riding this AI bubble, and almost every day I see an article about, the AI's bubble is going to burst, and we're about done with this, and AI is in trouble. It's going to be like the .com, these other things. And part of that may be true. I mean, it's obviously inflated. The Fed's printing money and just inflating the stock market right and left. But the real issue is AI is here to stay. It's not something that's going away. And it's also not a passing fancy. Even things like the metaverse, everything in the metaverse and AR and VR things are coming around full circle. I mean, the new glasses that Meta's come out with, the Vision Pro, I use it all the time, love it. I use it with my Mac Mini. There's so many things out there that are just changing right now, but at the same time, it's just interesting that Wall Street and the value of NVIDIA, which I'll talk about at the end of this video, because I do want to talk about the valuation of these companies and why I think the fact that they're promoting this kind of fear and FOMO of their own product, this fear of missing out, has led to all kinds of problems and misunderstandings. So let's just keep going.
Same thing, bragging that AI can do this job and this job and this job. And
not magic.
Said the right question, of course. What are these people going to do? And a total bullshit answer. Well, I think this is really going to create more jobs. No, it's not.
Yeah.
You're just doing it because you want to do it. I don't think these guys are even in it for the.
It was interesting, the things they mentioned about AI creating more jobs. They say that about the green industry and these other things. I'm sure there are at points, but it's more about AI really assisting job creation than replacing jobs. So it's not an either or, it's a both and, as I always say, to quote Kierkegaard, is one of my favorite philosophers.
Guys are even in it for the money. They have more money they could ever use. It's just fun. It's just fun to push the boundaries in the field that you're good at. I get it.
Yeah.
But they don't give a what the repercussions of AI taking everybody's job.
It's like that. I know.
It reminds me of that Jeff Goldblum saying from Jurassic Park where,
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should.
and that's definitely true with AI. I think the issue is pushing the boundaries. And I think it was the guy Harari recently I heard talking, and somebody said that there's kind of an AI arms race. There certainly is between China and the US, and Taiwan's caught in the middle because it's where most of the chips are manufactured. But there is an arms race of everybody racing to get to AGI and thinking, well, we have to be there first. And it's almost like the nuclear arms race of not worried about really what's going to happen once it's achieved or how it's going to be used. But like, if we don't do it, China's going to do it. Somebody's going to do it. If it's not OpenAI, it's somebody at Microsoft, it's somebody at Meta. Everybody feels like they don't want to be left behind. And if they don't do it, somebody else will anyway. And so there's really no limit to the amount of resources or talent that people are willing to throw at this thing, or money.
Yeah, it's almost like, as you say that, it's almost like they're making that old migrant argument. Hey, AI is just taking the jobs college graduates don't want to do. You know,
Right.
You know, it's like, what are you talking about? This is what people, you know, people want to be engineers. You know, these are fields that people have abilities in, and you know, a lot of genius about how to do things comes from.
I think this is an interesting point this guy's making here, but it's really not that, again, AI is going to destroy or stop all creativity or these other things. It's kind of a tool like any other until it becomes our overlords, but it's really, I think, a matter of artists, creative people working with it. I've been able to do a lot of these little 1-minute music videos with Sora. If you've seen any of my shorts on this channel or my posts on Instagram or X or anything else, you'll see that. But it's allowed me to be creative in ways that I couldn't be even a month ago. So I think it's really been a useful tool for me as part of my creative process that I work with. And I learn how to prompt engineer it, and I learn how to get it to do what I want it to do, to produce what I want. But I don't feel like it's really going to necessarily just replace people outright.
Do things comes from, you know, the way that people think differently and all that stuff. And AI takes over that. That's a whole swath of opportunities.
Again, it's the idea that people aren't really going to think at all, that AI is just going to replace their thinking. And that may be true for a lot of people. I mean, there are probably a lot of kids out there cheating on their schoolwork and using GPT right now, but in the end, that's not really going to serve them or serve a better purpose for them. AI should take people and should elevate your thinking and help you in the things you're thinking about, or to think critically about those things. If it doesn't do that, then it is doing a disservice. But I don't think it's necessarily doing that out of hand, or we should dismiss it outright. And I think there's a bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? A bit of hyperbole here. So the speakers are being hyperbolic. They're trying to make their point. But it makes me question how much they really understand or know about AI to begin with.
For people to be creative about the future,
Do you
that
think
goes away.
they want to? Do you think they're trying to get?
That's where they're talking about TikTok. So TikTok being banned, that's a whole other interesting story. Back in my previous life, before I was doing AI full time as a security person, I had a chance to look under the hood at TikTok and just see how much data was being sent to China. And it was alarming, to be honest. It was too much to even go through, to parse through with any kind of security tool. It was like a giant fire hose. And I think that's what some of the people in the government were freaking out about just how much data. I mean, it's, I don't know, petabytes a millisecond or something. I mean, who knows how much data is being sent. But but that whole thing in the ban being lifted under Trump, it just got lifted today, actually, is pretty fascinating, because it seemed like that was a play of, Trump knew, or people said there was going to be, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any means, but it does seem a little interesting that right around the inauguration, that he could come in and be the hero and play it up. But that's politics, and I'm going to stay out of that as much as I can for this channel. But sticking to the issue, going back to the topic at hand, I think that, and I've thought recently in recent days, that this AI revolution is a lot like the Industrial Revolution, or you can even go back to probably the invention of the plow, which would be drawn by cattle or horses. And I'm sure that back then there were people who said, well, what are we going to do about all the people that plow by hand? Or in the Industrial Revolution, when people came out with a loom, is what are we going to do with all the people that do this by hand? And I've met some of them. I met some of them last time I was in Scotland, and I don't think that art should ever cease to exist. I don't think it will, but I also think that that's going to change and evolve. So same thing with coding, and a lot of the jobs now that are going to be replaced by AI. There will be some, and there will be some in factories, particularly with robots. I think of probably Amazon warehouses being entirely staffed by robots at some point in the very, very near future. Those will be some of the first steps to go, and that's unfortunate, but at the same time, that's the nature of technological progress, and people will have to learn to adapt and synthesize and become more symbiotic with AI. It's interesting, in the futuristic world of cyberpunk, it's really about AIs and humans merging, and there's always a kind of a tug of war between man and machine. I mean, that was the theme of the whole series of Matrix movies a while ago that were also a bit ahead of their time. And I heard somebody refer to them as a documentary at one point, and I used that recently on somebody. But I do think that AI is just here to stay, and it's going to be part of our daily lives. There'll be AI in your toaster, your microwave, your car. It's already in everybody's phone pretty much, even whether you got the new one or not. I mean, you can still download apps to run on it, and people are using it. They're using it in some capacity. And when I meet with probably 2 or 3 clients a day, people are constantly telling me, well, there's somebody at my organization's already using AI. How do we corral it? How do we use it? And how do we use it for our benefit? And that seems to be some of the mixed messages that companies, and I think the general public, are getting, that AI has a real PR problem. And I think I'm going to do a whole video on just that, because what happens is that the people, the Sam Altmans and other people, oftentimes are like, yeah, we're going to get to artificial superintelligence, general intelligence, superintelligence. It's going to take over the world. And so people immediately think, oh, Skynet, it's terror, this thing's going to come and kill us all, which, I'm not saying it's not going to, but there's a bit of fear in the promotion, which is to kind of scare people either away from them or into investing with them, and the fear of missing out. And that's really been NVIDIA's key of driving a lot of the AI boom, is that, look, if you don't get on board with this thing, you're just going to get left behind. And some of that may certainly be true, but again, it's the manner in which it's being pitched. So my advice to the NVIDIAs would be, don't have your conference where you're saying you're just going to replace everybody's job. And that's not necessarily what they're saying, but that's the implied message a lot of times, is that we're not going to need coders as much. We're not going to do this. We're going to do that. Instead, it can be pitched more as an elevation, which is, like in my case in point, I'm not a great coder. I'm okay with Python, these other things. I can hack my way through it, but it will make me a better programmer. It will help me to think about certain things more. And they should put more critical thought into it, which they're working on. I mean, that's the whole thing of O1 and the O3 models that are coming out, is that they're sort of checking each other. I know MIT has done work where in the labs there, they had multiple AIs of different brands and varieties and flavors reacting to each other. And they would each triangulate and come up with the best answer. It's kind of like when you travel, they say ask 3 people, three people, and this is before GPS, but it's kind of like you ask 3 people and they'll vector you into where you need to go. And AI is somewhat the same thing. It's not all encompassing right now. Will it be at some point? more and more. I think it'll be just be more and more part of our daily lives and be baked into life. And there'll be an odd point probably in the future in a few years where people look back and kids will say to their parents, how did you guys ever live without AI? What was it like? And it'll feel like we're in the Stone Ages now. It's just going to progress. So it's better to, it was interesting I keep thinking about this point that David Daly made in the interview that I had with him. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But he talked a lot about just using AI and using AI in your daily life. And you'll learn from it and it'll learn from you. And it was interesting because I was coding late at night and I had my phone with GPT resting on the pillow next to me, and it was almost like I didn't want to wake it up. I was like, okay, just I'll call you when I need you, kind of thing. And it felt very personal in a way that very few tools really are. It's just something unique and different. And even with the neural networks, they're kind of like black boxes. I mean, I could describe to you the technology of how it works, how tensors work within GPUs that NVIDIA is creating, but as far as the neural network itself and how it quote unquote thinks, and I'll have to do another video on that. I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery even to technologists, because it can hallucinate and it can give you answers that aren't 100% accurate 100% of the time, and people expect for it to be magic. So, but let me just close out this video because I've been rambling for a bit. But it's usually those of you who know me know I have a tendency to think out loud. But please leave comments, and I'll try and reply to them when I can about what you think of this video or where it's going. The messaging also of the AI companies and entrepreneurs, which I feel like is oftentimes a double sword, which does them a disservice. And I think that they don't want the public up with pitchforks storming the castle. They need to revise their messaging and make it a bit more appealing to the masses of like, hey, this is going to help you in your jobs. This is going to make your life easier, and not just targeting businesses for their bottom lines. And I feel like a lot of people, the other comment I want to make too before I forget is there have been a bunch of layoffs in the tech industry lately. And I think a lot of that has to do as much with the economy and downsizing as it does with AI. So there may be also companies messaging as like, hey, we're letting you go and you're being replaced by AI, when it's really just them downsizing. And also I think it's like that a lot of organizations, a lot of large companies force their employees to come back to the office after the pandemic. And it wasn't really about that they actually wanted the employees to come out. It was more like they wanted them to quit on their own rather than having to be fired. So it's kind of like a soft firing. There's like quiet quitting, and now there's soft firing. And I think that's one of the reasons why AI has also gotten a bad rap. But I do think we need to be responsible and ethical in our use of AI. And that's one of the reasons why I got into it and why I work as an AI professional on the inside and in the industry, was to have some measure of influence over that and what's going on. And so I think there are those of us who are gathered together and saying, let's understand this tool, let's work with it, and hopefully make it better and allow it to be more human, and hopefully it's not making us more machine-like, but than we already are. But anyway, it's super late or early in the morning, I can't tell anymore. So I will wrap up this video, but thanks for watching. Give it the old like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next show. Thanks.